Hey everyone, Pastor Tim here, back once again with our good friend Dr. Michael Gurian sitting up there in Spokane, Washington. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Hi, everyone.
Now, I have no idea when we're going to air this, but today the Seattle Seahawks are playing the Rams in the playoffs, and I hope they both lose. I don't know how that would happen, but I hope they both lose. All right, so we've got that out of the way. I know you're a big Seattle Seahawks fan, so Michael, you and I had a chance to talk to parents and to couples many months ago when this pandemic was started, and here we are now. We're basically a year in to this pandemic. And we've been in phases of lockdown. We've had kids online for school. We've had kids back in school. Some of us are now homeschooling. But one of the many challenges of the pandemic has, of course, been isolation for people. This depression of staying locked indoors. Our really primary concern today are these parents, these married couples who have been kind of just stuck in their homes for the last 12 months. Many of them working from home, some of them schooling their kids and so on. And they haven't had a chance for almost a year to be husband and wife together or to be couples together. And I have a hunch it's just for some couples beginning to just sort of eat away at the relationship. Maybe there's a little distancing growing, or they don't know how to be couples anymore because you can't really go out for dinner in a lot of places. So let's talk a little bit about, now it's been almost a year. What are some of the insights that you have as a therapist for people who've been living under this kind of pressure, for couples living under this kind of pressure for the last 8 to 12 months?
Yeah, you're right. You've laid it out very well. There are a couple patterns that will emerge or are emerging. You know, to some extent, for some people, they're getting too close. You know, they're all together all the time, and so they're getting too close. And relationship, intimate separateness is really how we make relationship last. Intimate separateness. We're intimate, but we're also separate.
Right.
And that's how you get relationships that last for decades. And this COVID is this, always together this. But at the same time, for a lot of people, they are together in the same home, but it's just too close, so they're actually distancing. And in part, as you said, because they can't go do those rituals of bonding. So that's part of it. We kind of want to bond. And some couples are not having sex anymore. They're and that's a distancing, because you really want to. As long as everyone's healthy, you really want to be having sex. That's a good way to bond. But some couples are not anymore, or during pandemic fatigue. So I guess what I would ask people to look for is: are you feeling with your partner? Are you feeling too close, or are you feeling too far away? Because you want intimate separateness, and whichever you're feeling, we want to get to this. So if we can't go out to restaurants, which in your state and mine we cannot, then we need to be taking walks. And if they want to wear a mask, fine. But we need to be get out of the house as a couple. Some things will be with kids, but some things as a couple, and take walks, half-hour walks. Take a run together, whatever it is, take a bike ride together, whatever it is they do, because everywhere you are allowed to do that, even if you have to wear a mask. So do those things as you can do them, so that you have the bonding rituals that are for bonding, because being together in the house, working together in separate rooms, right, is not necessarily what we mean. We want those bonding rituals. And certainly I would repeat, have sex as you can, because that's a good bonding ritual. It's pure and deep. And then if you're feeling too close or too far away, as needed, I think this is a very, very good time for couples to use telehealth, to get counseling, because they are not alone. There are millions and millions of couples that are in some distress. because of this situation. And telehealth is the way to go. Gail has a much larger client load than I do. She sees 20 clients a week via telehealth, and it's quite effective. So if you're feeling these things, don't let them fester. Get counseling right away, because in the pandemic, it's even easier to get counseling than it was, which is crazy, but it is.
Yeah.
And don't let it fester, because this is in part created by the pandemic.
So for me, we're empty nesters. So the pandemic has not had that kind of taxing effect on our relationship. We love being together, and we know how to have distance and how to get together. And our house is big enough for us to do that. But for these young couples who have children as well, it's just nonstop. So how do couples build in some margin, some space for themselves as a couple and individually, even with small kids around? Let's say, for example, the kids aren't old enough to kind of be on their own yet. So you've got to have constant supervision of them.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. One is a set sleep hours for the kids, like 8 p.m. Now, of course, we're guessing about age, but let's say they're young kids, maybe 8 p.m. So then after 8 p.m., the kids go to sleep, whenever that is. And then the couple have a ritual. Maybe they watch TV together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe when maybe they have the energy, some sex. They play a game together if that's what they enjoy. And that's time they can carve out for themselves as couples. That's also time that each of the individuals can carve out. So because individuals need self-care, right? You're not going to be there for your partner if you're constantly stressed. So self-care. So half hour of self-care for one, then she comes back. The other one goes out, gets some self-care, and then they have some. So by that I mean a run or a walk or whatever they would do for self-care, and then they come back, and then they watch TV together or whatever would be a bonding ritual. And there's 8 p.m. You shouldn't have to work after 8 p.m. So they have to have the agreement. Okay, all our work, we're both probably working from home, but all our work, we got to have it done by 8 p.m. And if it's not done, we do it. We get up tomorrow morning and do it, because this is the time to take care of ourselves and the time to take care of our relationship, because we have young kids, and this is it. Now, the second thing I would say, though, is that I believe, like I think in Arizona, there is childcare has started again. Daycare has started again. Is that right?
Yeah, and many of our schools are open too. So
right, and many of your schools are open. So so since you have childcare again, so parents have, I always love to say if the extended family could look after the kids, but I know some extended family members don't want to do that right now. Okay, so then we're looking at childcare. If it's getting to if the couple is just like this, and they're fighting and they're stressed, and then find a couple hours for those kids to go to childcare. So that, they're well taken care of, obviously, but so that the couple and the individuals can get self-care and care for each other. And now at least that's different than it was in March and April. We want to remember, for everyone listening to this, just about every fight that you have, I say this not just as a researcher, but as someone who's been married, obviously a long time, 34 years, just about every fight you have as couples, just about every conflict and every stress and tension, just about everyone, not everyone, but just about everyone is really about the stress. We're really bringing our stress to our partner. We don't actually hate our partner. We don't actually want to be constantly angry with our partner, but we're so stressed. And then we pick a fight and we make a conflict, or they make a conflict with us, and then we have a conflict, and then we go far away from each other, and then we have to find our way back. And as long as we just remember, okay, this is stress talking. I'm not going to take this personally. What my partner just said to me, I'm not going to take it personally. That's the stress talking. I think that's something we got to do a lot of, and vice versa right now. And not necessarily you and I, like you said, I'm an empty nester as well, but for people who have the young kids all really close together, just really be kind to each other and forgive each other, because most of this is stress.
That is really helpful, just for couples to remember. We're in tough days, unprecedented days. And it's not just pandemic, it's all the stuff coming at us from social media and all the things that have been happening in our political system lately. So a lot of stress, a lot of dis-ease, and everything is upside down right now. And our human psyche wasn't created to take all of that on at one time. And so we have these stress outlets. What are some things that a couple should look for? Some for lack of a better word, warning signs or signals that says, boy, we got to figure something out here.
Well, a few I would look at are, have you stopped having sex? That's always one people, we laugh about sex, but it has an important role. And have you stopped? If people have stopped, now if they have a health concern, I'm going to bracket that out. But if no health concern and folks have stopped, then that I put that as a warning sign. Ought to explore why. Also, obviously, isolation. If the communication has stopped, the two people are isolating from each other. They're living in the same home, but they're isolating, so they're not communicating with each other. I would see that as a warning sign. A third warning sign is if there's just an uptick in the criticism, and there, which manifests as anger or harshness or criticism, or and which sometimes can become things like "you're stupid," and it can escalate to name calling. If we're seeing, if a couple is seeing that, and they can see that it's an escalation compared to say 6 months ago or a year ago, that would be a definite warning sign. Criticism, hypercriticism of each other, if it's gone on for even a few weeks, I think it's time to take a breath and try to figure out why.
And of course, just not talking to each other anymore.
That would be isolation. You're just not communicating.
So the husband's starting to make decisions without the wife's input about the kids, and it's just constant conflict. And
then there'll be a conflict about that. Yep.
Yeah. So let's focus it a little bit now on how couples together can manage the workload of having a family and having jobs. And what are some good insights, just to say these are good ways to sort of divide up the work and make sure that everybody's kind of putting in the effort? Because if you feel like all you're doing is taking care of the kids and working, and your husband and your wife isn't doing anything, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yep, that can't work. A good thing about this pandemic is, as the research comes out on it, we are finding that people are adapting, that they are dividing labor, that they are dividing their domains up, that they really are working together. That the human being, we're so adaptable. It's just interesting to see, but that doesn't mean there aren't, millions of couples where they're not. It's just, I think, a nice trend. But in couples where we're seeing what you described, a few things. One is everyone, make lists of people's domains. And then people need to, each person has to, check that off the list. If one person's domain, let me give an example that's easy. If one person is unemployed right now, which by the way, of course, will be part of the stress. If one person is unemployed right now, but the other is employed, then that person takes on obviously a number of domains that have to do with childcare, child education, making sure the kid logs on if the child's old enough to be learning online, doing homework with a kid. There'll be all of those domains that will now probably fall on the person who's unemployed. But if both people are working, then that domain list gets divided up some, and it's going to be divided up based on time, right? It's going to be divided who's free when during what hours, and that list has got to get made. And these domains have to be clarified and sort of codified, and then we fulfill our domains. For someone, it could be cooking. For someone else, so on these 3 days I cook, on these 3 days she cooks, based on the work schedule. It could be anything. Loading the dishwasher. Really anything is a domain. As the kids get old enough, I strongly suggest that during pandemic especially, and going forward, that kids have their sacred work, and they are part of the domains. And I think you and I have talked about this before, that every child should have sacred work every day.
Yes.
Every child should have a domain of, or more than one, chores, et cetera. And And all of these domains get worked out. If the kids are very, very young, they can't do it yet. As they get older, they can. Even caring for the children, that domain can get divided up, and some of the older kids can help with the younger kids. All of it becomes a domain. You make a list and you check it off the list, just like it was a schedule, just like we do in our workplace. I think that is very protective, and it then means that everyone is doing their part. Obviously, if one person just decides not to do his part or her part, that we can't solve today. I mean, that person is not acting with honor. That person is not acting with fidelity to the marriage, and hopefully someone can call that person to account, because we do need to each be responsible for our domains.
Right. Very, very good. I kind of wonder if even though this is a kind of a stressful time for us to be this close all the time, if once the pandemic begins to dissipate and we get back to life, we look back on this and say, you know what, it was really nice being that close together, because we were the problem we were talking about before was overscheduled kids, too busy parents, and not having real family time because everybody was running here and there. And now we have this opportunity to maybe build some new good habits that have forced us to say what's really the priority for us. And the things that we're not doing right now, should we start them again, or were they really getting in the way of our lives?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think, we have different populations for
Right.
a lot of people. For a lot of people, I think absolutely people who were on the road all the time, who never saw their kids and now are seeing their kids. I mean, what a blessing for them, and so on, like you've said. And then for other people, it's a shock. It's just a shock to be together so much. But I think by now they're starting to adapt to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the research is showing that we don't see a severe uptick in divorce yet. We thought we would. But we're not seeing it yet. And maybe we will see it. But I suspect, as you're saying, that also people are adapting to this. They're finding some the bonding and closeness, and not just with the spouse, but with the kids, right? Because, as you said, we're all around together. What I'm finding is the biggest problem is the schooling. If we could have, if people, let's say, assume both are employed, because if one is unemployed, again, that's a significant stressor. But let's say both are employed. If the kids go back to school, I think we're looking at it, kind of an optimal, almost utopian situation for couples and families, because the kids are going to school, and that stressor is taken off of the COVID household. Right now, the school stressor is, I think, what's taking these households over the edge.
Yes.
Because they know their kids aren't getting education. They can't keep up with it. A lot of them don't even have access. 25% aren't even logging on. So 25% of kids aren't learning, and the parents can see them just getting involved in media, video games, online, and they know that's not healthy. If we could lift that one, I think that's even better for all of us. But if schooling is going to be online now, then the best we're going to get is what you described, that people are going to go, okay, we're together a lot, and you know what? This is okay. This is good. I get to be with my family, and that's how I have to reframe this. It has to get reframed in my mind from I'm with everyone too much to this opportunity will go away in about 3 or 4 months once the vaccines happen. And that's a reframe that you're presenting that I think probably every couple should look at, because 3 or 4 months from now, you're right. Your implication is 3 or 4 months from now, everyone's going to be, let's say, back to the way they were, many people, and they'll be going, oh, I kind of miss my kids.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think you're right. There's a reframe we can do.
So both of us are men of faith who believe that faith is an important part of families. Christian background for me, Jewish family for you. As a therapist, talk a little bit about the role that faith can play in keeping families and couples stronger together.
Yeah, I think this is times of crisis are, of course, all times are a good time for faith, but times of crisis, the brain just naturally wants to try to, figure out higher purpose, higher power. How do I fit? How does all of this fit? And faith provides that. And so I think that now more than ever, looking at one's faith is an important thing, and being able to sort of surrender, understand that we're small and the world is big, right? God is big, universe is big, we're small. That surrender, that kind of kneeling before the impossible, which is what faith is, right? We don't really have evidence, I mean, to some extent, the whole thing is impossible, that there's some huge God and it's all, that's all impossible. But we kneel before that. We're humble. We feel that sense of surrender to it, give it to God, or however that's worded for people. I think that's very healing. It's very good for the brain. It contextualizes our stresses. And then beyond that, the assets inside our faith community, I think we want to rely on them more than ever. If someone right now is listening to this and they're in a coupled relationship that's having strife, I think the faith community gives you it immediately. I mean, it can happen via Zoom. You can reach out to people in your faith community and get help.
Yep.
And so how neat that the community exists. All those same assets are still there. We just probably have to access them via Zoom.
Right. When we first met 15 years ago, you told me you had written your last book, and then I think you've written 20 since that time. But you have a couple books that are really, really helpful for parents. So tell us a little about your boys' book and your girls' book.
Okay, yeah, and also Lessons of Lifelong Intimacy. Yeah. If, this little tip of the iceberg we've been talking about today, if folks just go on Amazon or wherever you have books and look up Lessons of Lifelong Intimacy by Gurian, that is a deep and I think really interesting look into how to have a strong coupled relationship, even through crisis. And then for the kids, The Minds of Girls and Saving Our Sons are the latest books. The Minds of Girls, if you have girls, and Saving Our Sons, if you have boys.
And what's great about all three of those books is they're based in solid science, not stereotypes, but solid science. And in particular with the book on the boys and the girls, the back is filled with all the research. So anybody who says, where can I learn more? I mean, it's pages and pages of the research as well. So these are just fantastic books. Michael, as always, it has been good to have you with us. And we appreciate so much your friendship to our congregation and the insights that you have for us. Tell us a little bit as we wrap. Tell us about our podcast that we do together, because I think parents would enjoy this.
Yes, well, you just told me that we're reaching 1 million downloads, which is amazing. I think it just crept up on us. We've just been doing this as a service. So wonderofparenting.com is the website, and then it tells you it's a free podcast. So if people go to wonderofparenting.com, they see all about it, and it drops every Monday. And Tim is the host, and I'm the guest. Is that how we do it?
You're the expert.
I'm the expert, but Tim is so wise. He is great. And so we interact, and often we answer parents' questions. Sometimes we have a theme, that we'll do, that's a theme. But a lot of the time we're answering parents' questions. And so any of you listening, they're your questions too. Like if one parent's asking the question, a lot of people are asking the question, and it's always science-based. I mean, we're both people of faith, and we both expand beyond science, of course, and we do have a lot of experience as parents. But at the same time, I'm science-based. That's my expertise. So I'm going to always go back to how the brain works. Here's how we maximize, your child's brain. So definitely brain science is the basis of it. And that's the subtitle.
Yep. Wonder of Parenting podcast, a brain science approach to parenting, and wonderofparenting.com. Michael, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
And, thank you all for watching.